All right. So the theme of the day is how to have a team that is smaller, less physical, smaller in stature, less physical, less fast, perhaps equally as skilled. How their playing style can be optimized to confront tactically bigger, stronger, faster, and sometimes even more technically skilled players. Right. So we're going to start with the win percentage model. Right. What the game of soccer looks like. So it's a Pythagorean theorem, right? Just like in algebra, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But basically now what we're talking about is goals, and it's not squared; it's 2.53. And basically, this model is a zero-sum game, right? You're trying to score more goals than the other team, and the win percentage is the number of goals you score to the power 2.53 divided by the goals you score to the power 2.53 plus the goals you allow to the 2.53, right? And what this is saying on several levels is that everything that happens is really exponential in soccer. So these goals, which are rare events, have outsized importance, right? And it's sort of like a slippery slope, right? One bad thing happens and then the whole game goes against you. So mistakes are magnified. Mistakes that lead to goals are magnified by their team. So by the same token that good, strong plays are magnified, right? So basically, if you look at these kinds of formulas, scoring the first goal changes the condition of the game. And the team that scores the first goal and then adapts their game plan, most of the time they're winning 30% more than their baseline otherwise would have won, right? So scoring the first goal is a rare event, which is a lot of luck involved. Who scores the first goal does not necessarily mean who's the better team, right? Whoever scores the first goal shifts their chance of winning by plus 30%. So that's sort of the background. Now, if you look in here, right, the best teams, the most physically dominant teams, the most technical and athletic teams, they're just going to worry about scoring goals. And some of the lower end of the table teams, they're just going to worry about stopping goals, right? But this formula tells you something else. It tells you a couple other things. One is there's a way to score goals in a way that minimizes goals allowed, right? So I want to score goals in a way that stops counterattacks, for one, right? I want to score goals that doesn't leave me vulnerable or doesn't overtax me physically, right? So I want to score goals efficiently, not just score goals. Score goals in a way that keeps my legs and my heart and my lungs underneath me. Score goals in a way that minimizes counterattacks. So these teams are high possession teams. They possess the ball far away from their goal. They play out of the back. They play like small players, technical players. Their buildups are 20, 30, 40 passes in a buildup, right? If you think about traditional soccer, the 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, these are all counter-attacking formations. For the most part, they move the ball north and south very quickly. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about 20, 30 passes in the buildup, where the end shape is very different than a 4-2-3-1 or 5-3-2 or 5-2-3, right? The end shape is almost like an inverted pyramid. 2-3-5, 1-2-1-6, 2-7-2, right? There are lots of players snuck forward. The ball is held in the other team's half. And the shape is passed into. So 20, 30 passes used to build this shape with very few defenders and a lot of attackers. But it requires you to have control of the ball to build this shape. So what are we talking about? Playing out of the back. So this here is a quick recording of what happens when the other team presses to disrupt the formation. So if they press with 3, if they press at the ball, the number 4 there has the ball, they're pressing now. We position our triangle, our control triangle, in front of the defenders. That's the tiki-taka, Barca small functional adaptation, right? And then we move the ball out of there away from pressure. This is how small players play. Small players, when they're under pressure, small teams bring players to the ball, right? And this has nothing to do with the formation now. Now we're dealing with the opposing team's press. So we shouldn't be thinking about 5-3-2, 4-3-3. We should be thinking about the ball. How many players to the ball and what's the shape? So let's say they high pressed, we swung the ball away, and now they're tired a little bit of pressing. So rather than in the first instance where our triangle was in front of the press, now we're going to put their players inside of our control triangle. So they're tired of pressing now, so they're holding, and we're just going to sneak players around a couple of their attackers. So now, as opposed to the first instance where the triangle was in front of the press, now the triangle surrounding the press. Because they're not pressing as intensely. And then we play through them. Once you play through them, then you can force a dribble, force a pass, pass long, switch, carry the ball progressively. So that's called Boca Small, where the defender or the press is inside the triangle. Now we move 2 or 3 of them inside our triangle. And it's very fluid. There's no positions here. We're passing our way into a shape where there's 4, 5, 6 attackers. And then we're going to hold the ball far away from our goal. There's the Boca Small again. And there's the switch. And there's the through ball. So at that point, there's basically 1 defender, 4 midfielders, 5 attackers. To give you an example. So again, we go back here. They're pressing. Our triangle is in front of the press. The team is tired of pressing. We put 1 of their defenders inside our triangle. We build from there. We play through. Once we beat the first line of the press, we can progress the ball on the dribble. We can switch. We can pass through them. Right? And we're eventually building a shape where there's 5 or 6 attackers. So here, the sticks are the defenders, right? This is Boca Big. There's 2 or 3 sticks in front, or 2 or 3 sticks inside our triangle. And then we're going to Boca Small, where there's 1 stick inside our triangle. And then we go to Tiki Taka, Barca Small, where all our players are in front of the sticks. All our players are in front of the defenders. There it is. Barca, Tiki Taka. Everyone in the triangle's in front of the defenders. Boca Big to Barca. Boca Big to 2 or 3 sticks inside our triangle. 1 stick inside our triangle, Boca Small. Boca Big, 2 sticks. Tiki Taka, no sticks. And then at one point is what's going to be a double post offense where we have our player drop inside our own triangle. Here it is with the ball. 1 stick, 1 defender, right? There's big. So we have 2 or 3 defenders inside our triangle. No defender to 1 defender inside our triangle. That's Boca Small. Boca Big, 2 or 3 defenders inside our triangle. Tiki-taka, no defenders inside our triangle. Right? And then we're going to split, and then we're going to put our player inside our triangle. Right? So it's a functional aspect to these shapes. Right? Overall, we're trying to build shapes that are an inverted pyramid that have 1 defender at the back, 3 max, right? And have 4, 5, or 6 attackers at the front, right? But how we get there is a matter of playing through their press, playing through their pressure. When you play through their pressure, we got to know who and how we're controlling the ball. And a lot of times that means placing our defenders in numbers in front of the press and then playing through, right? And then once the press becomes a block, they get more tired. Then we strategically place our players in the gaps behind the first line of the press so that they're now inside our triangle, right? And if you have 1 player inside the triangle, you're probably going to switch or dribble through or play through, right? If you have 2 or 3 players inside our triangle, then you're probably going to, when you receive the ball in that triangle, eventually you're just going to turn and attack because they're going to be 2 men down, 2 players down. So it's much more fluid and far less structured than the counterattacking style of soccer, which relies on spreading out and positioning yourselves, right? A lot of times here, you got to hold the ball on the side where there's a lot of pressure, and then you got to deal with the pressure by slowly stepping around it and playing through it, sending numbers. Anyway, so that's a little bit about how it all fits together. If we go back to our model, right? We're not a team that is just looking to score goals. We're not a team that's just looking to stop goals being scored, right? In this instance, we're a team that either scores goals in a way that minimizes goals allowed, which will increase our win percentage, or a team that defends in a way that maximizes goals being scored, right? Now, that's not strictly counterattacking. For instance, when we're playing high possession, we're possessing the ball as small players, technical players, with numbers away from our goal, which means we're playing with 4 or 5 attackers, and those attackers are near the ball, and they're near the ball away, as far away as possible from our goal, right? Well, when we lose the ball in that situation, we're flooding the zone. We already got a lot of attackers in the zone, but we're going to flood the zone with even more attackers. So we're defending what's called a counter press. We're defending very, very high with numbers when we lose the ball. And we're closer together. You think about the tiki-taka or a Boca Small. Tiki-taka or a triangle is in front of the defensive press. A Boca Small, when they're in a sort of a zone squeeze press, and we put one of their attackers, one of their pressing forwards inside our triangle, right? If we lose the ball in that situation, well, we already got 3. We already got a control triangle 3. We're going to add 3 more players into that zone and win the ball back right away, right? That's a counter press. So we're not only trying to score goals in a way that minimizes goals allowed, we're trying to possess the ball, i.e. we're trying to possess the ball as far away from our goal as possible. But when we lose the ball, we're defending up front. We're defending, pressing immediately upon losing the ball, and we win it back, and then we open up again. So we're trying to defend, minimize goals allowed in a way that maximizes goals scored. There's a couple other things you can do with this formula, right? One is that once you score that 1 goal, you can switch your game profile. So you might go from trying to score that 1 goal or trying to score the goal in a way that minimizes the goals allowed to being very, very defensive or not so much defensive, but another way of producing defense is just possessing the ball. So la nuestra, the way the Argentinians play when they are ahead, they pull the ball away from the other team with their first touch, normally with the sole of the foot. They put their back, they face their own goal, and then they possess the ball. They can still play through if there's an overload or some kind of technical or tactical advantage, right? But for the most part, once they're ahead, they're pulling the ball back and they're possessing the ball, right? So they're managing the game. They're playing defensively with the ball. They're using possession, they're using attack to deny the other team the ability to score goals, minimizing goals allowed. So they're managing the game. So there's like 4 or 5 different profiles here. One is like the team that scores a lot of goals, the team that scores goals but minimizes goals allowed, the team that minimizes goals allowed in a way that allows goals to be scored. There's a team that just worries about goals allowed, but then there's a team that manages the game. They have different profiles depending on what the score is, right? And then not so much for your club because you're normally smaller technically, but there's also the player selection, right? So if you have a profile where you're just possession players, you're all 11 midfielders, right? You'll deny the other team the ball. That's just like playing defense. Whereas if you have a profile where there are people who might be possession oriented, but they're strictly attackers or defenders, then you can play with this sort of game management model, right, by the quality of the players that you're choosing, right? So there's a couple implications or a lot of implications of this formula. But what you guys need to do as small players is develop a defense, use possession to defend, use possession to minimize goals allowed, and then use possession, complexity and speed and tempo to increase the attack value of the possession. So basically, use possession to minimize goals allowed in a way that maximizes goals being scored. So possession as defense and speed and complexity of passing as offense. And controlling the game as far away from your goal as possible. And rather than collapsing your defense, counter-pressing when you lose the ball, sending numbers to the zone where the ball is lost. A lot of players very quickly, which means you can't be that far from the ball. So when you're the smaller team, you have to manipulate space. You have to be very careful when you spread out. You have to slowly build your spread out, right? And for the most part, if the ball is insecure or the ball is being pressured, then you're closing in, maintaining possession, and getting ready to lose the ball and win it back. So that's what we want to show you tomorrow. Hopefully, even if it's not clear, have a look at the video a little bit and some of the concepts, but we're definitely explaining that to you tomorrow.